are live in my kitchen today. I had not scheduled this. This is not planned in any way. I'm not sure if anybody will join or if anybody will even see it while I'm here. It might be short if nobody's around. Um, one of the benefits of having sort of a little bit of a smaller community is that we can have lives that are really interactive and we can kind of get to know each other a little bit better, which is kind of my intention. I've been thinking about this for, well, a while, but especially in the last month, I've really been wanting to try to get live to just try to get to know you better. You see me one way, and I know a few of you, especially by like username, because you frequently will post or comment and things like that, which I greatly appreciate. But when we can interact and things like that in a different way, it's kind of what I'm hoping is to build something different by doing this. And so if you see this live, if you see future lives, and you're liking that process, then just let me know, because that's how I know to do them more. So I'm just going to kind of do stuff in my kitchen. I'm getting some dinner ready already. And so let me know if you have any questions or comments. What are you having for dinner? Do you have any projects that are coming up? Are you in the middle of any projects? Just anything that's on your mind that you want to throw out there. If there's things in my content that I do but less frequently that you'd like to see more of, any sort of comments or anything like that on content ideas or suggestions, or I wish you did more of this or that, open to that too. So if I can figure out how to even see things. Hello from Utah. I have family in Utah and I live there too. I went to college at the University of Utah for 1 year and I loved it. That's awesome. All right, so what I'm making for dinner is I actually have some chicken legs, chicken drums, out, and I'm making those for dinner, so they're just thawing. And I was thinking I would make this buttercup squash. You may have heard me talk about our CSA, and this is the first year I've done a CSA, and I really liked it. I was really hesitant because I'm the kind of person that's like, well, if I'm going to eat all this, I should be able to grow it. But it was so nice. It was so nice to not have to do all the little things, but to still get great food. So I'm going to cook up this squash. We still have it. In fact, I like the summer one so much that I signed up for the winter one. Well, I'm not from Utah, but I live there and I have family there now. And so we don't visit that often, but we did visit this last spring and the spring before, just in Salt Lake there. So we'll just scoop this out. I don't know if you guys like squash. Sometimes my family can be a little picky about squash. And by family, I mean me, I guess. I don't like it just any old way, but sometimes I have squash cooked other places and it's done so simply that it's really good. So I'm just going to throw this in the oven and roast it. We've had a lot of potatoes lately, so I thought maybe skip the potatoes. I don't know if you have any suggestions on what to eat with squash and chicken. We have some fresh veggies. And another thing, I know that there's a lot of ham in stores right now, especially in the last few weeks, and so we actually bought a ham recently, and we had it, and it smelled like holidays. So I have ham, just ham hock, simmering to make a ham stock, and I'm hoping to get half of it. Maybe I can reserve half of it and then eat half tomorrow with a bean soup. I think in the spring when I had a ham for some reason, we also had a bean soup and it was so good. It was just navy beans and they were so good and creamy. So I'm going to soak my beans today. If you have a good bean soaking strategy, I'm really interested to see what you're doing for that. We have done all different kinds of things, and sometimes it seems to work better than others. I've seen some YouTube videos from people on different strategies. I've heard pressure cooking is a good way to go, to kind of reduce some of those anti-nutrients and things like that, things that can cause like GI upset. and just allow them to be absorbed better. But one of the videos I was watching, this gal broke down all these different ways. And so what she does, she soaks it in water and adds a combination of salt and baking soda. And so something with that combination is supposed to be really good for reducing, just making it more available. And then I've also heard, again, like I said, pressure cooking is really good because it can break down a lot of the stuff that just doesn't break down as easily if you're just boiling it or slow cooking it. So anyway, that's what we do. So I'm just rambling on here. Looks like a few people have popped on and off. But again, just if you have anything you want to throw out there, it's fun to kind of know who's around and who you are. Maybe you like it one directional, but if we can make it more interactive, I think that's a lot more fun. And it can be a richer community, richer experience. I like it when I can like comment on YouTube videos and then the people write back to me. And sometimes it's like they'll say assistant to the person, but when you know you're getting the person directly, it's kind of fun. All right, so we've got squash ready. So for you on, if you want to answer any questions about like what you're eating for dinner, what kind of kitchen projects you have going on, are you a canner? Are you a food preservation person? Are you none of the above, all of the above? Anything like that you want to throw out there. Anything that you would like to see more from a channel like mine. I know it can kind of be haphazard. We do dehydrating things, canning things, meal prep things, freezer meal things. It's a little bit scattered in terms of that, but it does sort of stay similar theme. But if there's other things that you'd like to see more of, or if you're like, you know what, this seems to be like the best content that I see that you make, let me know, because I can only see what I see. I know what I like to do. I mean, a lot of this stuff I'm doing in my kitchen anyway. So the things that I can kind of bring you along or kind of easily capture, I try to. Oh, awesome. You grew your first butternut squash. So you're talking one like this. That's super exciting. So yes, so for dinner tonight, I'm making chicken, that squash, and I need to find something else. We've had a lot of potatoes, maybe I'll make some anyway. I know it's a couple of starchy vegetables, but yes, with the bean soup, this is something I'm gonna make tomorrow. But I'm just making my I'm making my ham stock and then soaking my beans. Some people, back to the bean soaking thing, there's so many different varieties, and I wish I could find that video and share it some way. But this gal goes through all these different processes for soaking beans and which are most effective in different ways. And if you don't have time, and if you do have the time, and I usually have the time and the planning to do the beans. If not, I'm just cracking open a can of pre-done beans. But if not the pre-done beans, then I have the time to soak and do that long process. So that's what I'm doing. And I don't mind it going for a long time. This is probably going to go for, well, until tomorrow, until I start. And actually, I don't know if you guys have any enamel cast iron. I was gifted this from my brother recently, and everything I cook out of this pot tastes amazing. Absolutely amazing. I have a regular cast iron that's maybe a little bit bigger than this, that doesn't have the enamel coating. And it is a little finicky because you have to be careful for acidic things, tomato things. There's just sometimes flavor transfer, but this has none of that. It has all the good kind of qualities of cast iron without any of that transfer or concern. So I will make my bean ham white bean and ham soup in here. We'll add like potatoes, onions, carrots, and kind of do that saute. I'll pull the pork off of the ham hock. And I'm thinking that, well, like I said, what I would like to do is keep half of this for freezing. I'll freeze broth. And if I can also reserve half of the ham itself, then I can use it for another ham and bean soup. It'll be like specifically for that, as opposed to just having ham stock that I can use for anything. So I'm hoping that I can basically make 2 meals out of it, 2 exact meals in that way. But I love cooking in this enamelware. And I know a lot of enamelware is pricey. This one is a Lodge brand one, which I think are a lot more cost effective, especially if you can get them at like an outlet or something like that. You can get really high quality stuff for that. And these are all tested for lead and other heavy metals. So that's a big relief for me. That's something I think about when it comes to anything from like cups, mugs, enamelware. I'm trying to think of other kitchen things where I've been really mindful of lead. There are certain amounts of lead that are allowed in dishes and things like that. They are ideally third-party tested. Okay, I should also say lead is one of my passion subjects because we've lived in some old houses, and for somebody who lives very consciously about, you know, natural detergents, natural soaps, like I don't use air fresheners, you know, I don't clean with harsh chemical, like those kinds of things. To live life like that, buying like good food, making homemade food, then to come up with something like lead as has been like a hazard in our environment, it completely threw me off. And so it's been this massive saga, and I know so much about it, and I know like all the places to look, things to be cautious of. And I can talk very extensively. I actually brought it up to our mayor, the concern that I had, because I said, you know, in terms of like prenatal care up until the age of 1, kids, you know, they don't say anything about it. And then you have your kids tested at age 1. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. Trying to avoid food waste. Use what you have. Okay, yeah, looking for food inspiration. Food waste, that's a hard one too. I think, I don't know if you struggle with this, but for food waste, sometimes I get tired of leftovers. And so I try to either make food that I know is going to make good leftovers, or have things separated out where it works well for leftovers. Like when I make stock, my preferred way of making chicken stock is to buy a raw whole chicken, and I put it in my Instant Pot for 90 minutes, and then I let it cool down. I take it out. Once it cools down, I pull the meat off, and I put all of the skin, cartilage, bones, wings. I don't pick through the wings and stuff like that. I put those back in with some celery and some bay leaves. Initially, I also put an apple cider vinegar and a little salt. And then I let it go for another 50 minutes. And then I have all that chicken left over, which is usually at least a full quart of chicken that I can use for something else. And then it ends up kind of like funneling into our meals or soups or things like that throughout the week that I didn't necessarily plan for. You have a pot. Are you talking about the enamel pot? Something about this enamel too, I think it like slows me down. Maybe you've heard me mention in my videos, because it's something I'm becoming increasingly aware of, is I've noticed that I'm a very impatient person and it comes out in different ways. And sometimes in my cooking, like I don't even take time to stop and taste my food. I just kind of keep going with things. And because I kind of have an easy way to keep track in my head about what I put in and how much I put in. So in that way, I kind of keep track of things. But with this pot, I want to take more time to make my meal. When my grandma would make food, she would spend hours and hours and hours seemingly cooking something that doesn't need to take that long to cook. But her food was always amazing. And I think that that's part of it. So I enjoy the fact that having this thing makes me want to slow down. It's like, okay, I'm going to make something in the enamel cast iron. So that means I'm going to start way early. I'm just going to kind of let it go. And things like this bean and ham soup, it's so creamy and yummy. You don't want those beans to be uncooked. You want it to take a long time. Okay, yeah. And they make larger ones too. that probably would be better for my family size, but because a lot of times this one is to the top, but it's been working well so far. I've only had it maybe a couple months. So back to the lead thing. Um, I kind of brought it up to our city, like, when we hear about lead or we're educated about lead, it's water and paint. But some of our major sources of this have been, I mean, it's not just in paint, but it's also in old varnishes. So we have a really old banister right here and all this old wood trim. Some of this wood trim is not as bad, but you can tell this. I know the lead look, so I can tell when it's a lead when it's a lead surface. But I brought it up to them, and I was just kind of like, we're not taught about these other sources. Oh, the other big source was our soil, because until 1996, lead was allowed to be in gasoline. And so anywhere where there's been a frontage road or the little grass patch between a sidewalk and a street, if it's been there since that long, that's probably contaminated with lead. And the issue with that is lead does not come out of the soil very easily. So, we've done extensive lead remediation, and by extensive, like, our house was renovated before we bought it, like over 12 years ago. But there were a few places where it wasn't, and it was like they were almost like hidden here and there, and not intentionally, but it was just like we thought things were all buttoned up, but it wasn't. And the soil was really bad. The soil was really high. I think that they allow like something like 300 parts per million in any kind of like play area for kids. So that'd be like the highest standard. And we had some that was 330, some that was over 600. And we have this driveway that kind of comes in between our house and our neighbor's house. So right by there. So just stuff like that, and just awareness. So anyway, it's a big passion project of mine. And I had to eventually just like, once I talked to our mayor and I kind of brought it up to her, it ended up creating this cascade that actually triggered these massive city projects being done to remediate lead pipes. And across our state, then it was taken to the state. So there's actually was a lot that was done that I didn't realize was kind of as a result of all this. But once I passed it on, I just kind of had to back off because it was just so much. And I was like, we've done what we can, and I've kind of taken it as far as I think I can. But anyway, so these have been tested for lead, and so I feel comfortable with them. But anyway. I don't know if you guys are tea drinkers. I've become a coffee drinker at times, but this Earl Grey green tea is so good. South Carolina. I've been to South Carolina one time. I think just once. We flew into Charleston when I was probably like 14, and I played violin for a wedding there. But it was really nice. And coming from Minnesota, in the winterish months, it was great. Strip tests for dishes. Yeah, in fact, there is a company out of Utah that has done extensive dishware testing. I believe the company is out there, and from what I could tell, there's this stuff called Fiesta ware that is like got lots of elaborate colorings and things like that, that had really high levels, just like across the board. But this simple Corelle unembellished glass, I believe it is glass, plates. That's why I use this stuff. It's super basic and super plain, but that's why I use it, because I didn't want to have to think about it. I didn't want to have to even like wonder, well, is it in this or is it in that? And a lot of things they'll say that if it's cracked or chipped, to throw it away. And part of that is because of that, because in like something like clay, the lead can be in the clay, but not the outside glazing. So if it's chipped, then the clay can be exposed and potentially be some kind of an exposure. But I mean, I dug deep into it. Any kind of brand that I had in my house, I was searching into. I even thought, and I don't know if you guys are canners, but the old colored jars, like the blue ones, I have heard that those maybe had lead at one point. there was something about that, something about the colored jars potentially having lead. But yeah. All right, so I need some more ideas for what to go with this dinner. 1 second. Maybe I'll roast some broccoli. I have sweet potatoes, but then it's like everything orange. Oh, what are you canning? Oh, iron is low. I deal with low iron too. Why would coffee be not advised if your iron is low? And have you had ferritin checked? I have always had normal normal iron, but my ferritin level, which is your iron stores, is what's been very low. So I think if it were to have ever gotten much lower, then it would start to show in my actual iron level. I've heard things like if you take iron with dairy, it can interfere with absorption, but I've never specifically heard about coffee causing any iron. I use this iron. I really like it. It causes no upset, no blood upset. It also has a vitamin C. I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure you have your iron covered, but that's another thing I get really excited about because I've dealt with low ferritin, and it makes a huge difference in energy levels especially when the ferritin is low. I'm very sensitive, so I can tell when just my ferritin is low, as opposed to being like full-blown anemic, which I've never been. But when those stores are low, it's an issue. Yeah, I'm always curious about what people can off season. I used to, when I first started canning, think, oh, the same brand, pure, nice. Is it the one with C or just the? I'm sure they have a different iron too. That brand is so great because it's like pharmaceutical grade or something like that. But I used to think that everything that was canned should be coming out of your own garden, and so this idea of canning off season was new to me for a long time. Oh, wow. Do you have an apple tree for all those apples, or is that just stuff that you've gotten? Yeah, with vitamin C. Yeah, berries take up a ton of space. We eat a lot of berries and cherries and things like that in smoothies. But are these berries that you've picked? There's no specific agenda here. We're just chatting, Leilani. I'm making dinner. I'm cutting up broccoli. We're going to roast for dinner. Butternut squash. That's all sitting here in water, so all I have to do is cover it and bake it. And then chicken legs. Oh, a local co-op. Nice. Are they organic then? I know co-ops sell non-organic stuff too. I have purchased bulk from our co-op for canning like pears and peaches, but I'm not going to do that again. The peaches were mealy, were not good. In fact, the best peaches I've canned were from Utah. The best peaches I've had, period, were from Utah. Back in 2008, in the fall in September, there's an amazing, I don't know if you're in Salt Lake, but there's an amazing farmer's market down in, I think, is it Pioneer Park? It's that one kind of by downtown. But I really, really like that farmer's market. It's awesome. It's second to one in Minneapolis, though. The one in Minneapolis, if you're ever in Minnesota, is like out of this world. But that one down in Pioneer Park had peaches, and of course it was like the end of August, and they were at the peak ripeness, and they were just like They were juicy, and the texture was just on point. The ones that I've gotten from our co-op, the texture's been funky. They don't seem to can mealy, but actually, I think I might have recorded the peaches that I got from our co-op. I think I have a canning video on that. But yeah, and since then we've tried to buy fresh ones there, and they just do not taste good. They're the Colorado peaches though. But and then as far as pears, they turned out better because I don't think that that soft texture is quite the same. But okay. And a couple years ago, I had a family member pick them up at one of, I want to say, is it Cranston? Is it something like that? I don't know if that's right. But I had him get 4 boxes, and I did a ton of canning from those, and those were amazing as well. All right, it's not a ton of broccoli, but I had two heads. I'll just use one. One thing that we like to do, if you've seen my hydrating videos, I know I talk a lot about the powders and putting them in smoothies and things like that. With the greens, the cranberries, and the beets, I put those all in smoothies. And a lot of times we like to have those like as dessert or after dinner. So if we have like a smaller dinner, or sometimes even just with, like, I'll make just like salmon and smoothies. And in the smoothies, I'll put cherries, bananas, usually raspberries, sometimes blueberries, and then all the powders, lots of the greens, some of the beets, some of the cranberry. Although I can put more cranberry in. I may have mentioned that in the beet one, that the beets tend to have a very strong beet flavor, but the cranberry, I'm experimenting with how much I can put in, and it still is like really good. And then I also do put in a protein powder, although I have not been able to find this the last few times I have been to Whole Foods, and I think they're transitioning away, and that was no pun intended. But this grass-fed whey protein powder has whey protein isolate and whey protein concentrate, but their new stuff I notice is in bags, and it's either one or the other. So I don't know. That's the last container I have of that. There's not a whole lot going on here. I'm just kind of making food, but I appreciate you being here. Making food, and then also just trying to interact a little bit more in real time with people who want to, I don't know, interact more than just comment interacting. Nadine has shared some of the stuff that she's been doing. She's canning today. Peach days. I don't know what the Maddox is, and I don't know what peach days is, but that sounds amazing. What time of year is that? That sounds like something I need to be out there for. I have thought for a long time it would be super fun to and I've literally been talking about it probably since I got those 4 boxes a handful of years ago. But I'd like to go out there when the peaches are at like peak, and maybe even the pears, if I can cross those two in any way, and do a bunch of canning. But then it's like, well, do I go get them and I bring them home? In which case, then I have to rush more. Do I do the canning out there and have to process them longer because the altitude? Like I've been trying to think of all these different ways that I can make that happen, and I just haven't even done it. So, am I planning something for Thanksgiving? Yes. I have our whole menu planned out, and the reason is that I don't know, we decided to stay home this year. I like being home for holidays, and I like being home around holidays too. Because sometimes when you have all this stuff going on for holidays, and then on the heels of that, you have to pack and leave, it kind of takes away as well. So we decided we're just going to stay here for the holiday and the surrounding days. And so I got out my planner, and I put in my, and you guys probably know this is what I'm talking about, in my special events day, I got everything listed out. I talked to family and thought about what people would want. Here's the thing. I try to make I try to cook healthily, healthy. And around the holidays, I get really excited about all the cooking. And I try to throw in recipes that I've never made before that I think would be healthier. But the problem with that is peach days. Okay, so like right around Labor Day. Yeah, that'd be, and that seems like you'd probably catch pears then too. I'm gonna look into that because that sounds like a great time of year to go to. Still hot, but might be all right. Um, okay, so for the holidays, and I do things that I get excited about, and I'm thinking, oh, we're gonna make Thanksgiving healthier, or whatever. Well, a lot of these things, they're fine, but then maybe I make too much, and I'm just kind of like meh. So we're gonna do for the actual meal, we're gonna stay very basic and very brown. I think we're gonna do the turkey, and I've been experimenting with chicken in ways that I can smoke it without having a smoker. A couple years ago, my brother smoked a turkey breast for our Thanksgiving, and it was so good. I've never enjoyed turkey that much, but that I could eat every day. So I was thinking, without buying a smoker and going through all that, how I could do that. And so what I've been doing is, well, I have a smoker box, and it's basically this little stainless steel box that you fill with smoker chips and put on your grill, and then you kind of get the smoky effect. But it's a little trickier because it's hotter, and so you're not like cooking it with the smoking as much and stuff like that. So jury's out on how the turkey's going to be cooked, but I'm going to do mashed potatoes, stuffing, a green bean casserole, which was never something I had growing up, but my husband did, and so we make it and like it. But I like to do that one from scratch. And then a cranberry sauce. Although I think I might do something with corn too. One of our kids has been asking a lot about having corn lately. My grandma made this amazing scalloped corn recipe. We are not having any like gluten right now, and so her recipe wouldn't work. And I don't know that there's an alternative to some of those ingredients, but anyway, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep it super kind of like basic and maybe classic in that regard. And the cranberry sauce I make is like a cranberry orange sauce. It is so amazingly good. So we're just gonna keep that plain. And sometimes I'm like, we'll make a salad. I'll make a roasted something that's like green, or like I do sweet potato stuff sometimes. But this year we are gonna not. But earlier in the day, we're going to have, that's going to be our veggie load. And so we're going to do pickles, olives, carrots, cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, peppers, broccoli with dip. And that could be like Daisy makes a ranch dip that's a really clean. It's just like their sour cream with ingredients. There's no weird thickeners, no gums, no artificial stuff. Like it, I love the Daisy brand for dairy stuff. And then maybe some hummus. I've been making a lot of hummus lately, so I can just make that, or we can buy it or whatever. We've got plenty of stuff to make it. So if we have hummus, I'd probably make that one. And then, so we're gonna have all that kind of front load. Meals in jars. Okay, so we talking like a dump and go, or something that can be added to a meal. I've seen a channel recently talking about canning meals in jars. Specifically, she'll do like one protein and then make 5 different kinds and throw it in her electric pressure canner. I don't have an electric pressure canner. Maybe that's why she does 5. I just have a regular pressure canner, which takes 7 or 8. I've been thinking about doing that. In fact, I was thinking maybe doing it live if I get enough people who maybe want to do it together. We could come up with a recipe list. Okay, so also, would you want different jars, like each jar filled differently? Or the benefit of doing that is then if you make 7 or 8 jars of something and maybe you don't like it after one jar, then you're not stuck with all these things. It also gives you more variety if you have other things. Yeah, 5 different. And chicken. I was thinking that'd be good too. Yeah, good idea. I'll do that. And then I was thinking pork would be a good one too. There's usually pretty good prices on pork, it seems. somebody told me recently they're eating a lot of pork and some of their meat, and the reason for that was because the prices of the other ones were just so expensive. So 5 pork, yeah, yeah. I want to do pork too, pork and chicken. That's good. We'll do that. And then, like I said, like as a live, I think that'd be really fun. I mean, if people like the recipes or whatever, but as long as you had everything kind of lined up and ready to go. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then for dessert, I want to do the classic pumpkin pie. Well, no, I'm sorry, pumpkin pie and apple crisp. I think I can do a pretty easy gluten-free pie crust because I do quiche gluten-free and it's fine. And then apple crisp, I actually asked that for my birthday this year and it was amazing. So then just with whipped cream. And then for something fun to drink, I have cranberry juice still from last a year and a half. Anyway, I don't know. I'd have to look. But the cranberry juice is still in the basement. So sometimes that mixed with like a Zevia, so like a soda that's not like sweetened with sugar. We can put some cranberries in there or something like that. So that was my only suggestion for something fun to drink. Otherwise, we just drink milk and water. That'd be kind of fun and festive. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about making. I don't know what you have on your list, but I'd be interested to hear what you have. But yeah, it's very traditional and basic and plain. But that's the way I'm going to front load the vegetables so that I'm not, thinking I need to make all these crazy dishes that for actual Thanksgiving meal that honestly we're probably not going to like anyway. Well, not that we won't like, but you know what I mean. We're gonna be sidestepping it for those other things that I mentioned. Some of the most basic ways to make food can be so good. I'm just gonna open. I have this attached to my spice cabinet. My favorite way to roast food is literally just with olive oil, salt, and pepper. It could be carrots, broccoli, cauliflower, squash, sweet potatoes, onions, zucchini, bell pepper. All that stuff is super good. The one vegetable I'm not crazy about is eggplant. Oh, it's a restaurant. That's cool. I'm going to look that up too. I'm really interested in hearing more about that. Well, I'm so excited that I got some feedback specifically on something that I was wanting to do. That's really exciting. That means for sure it's going to happen. And it's interesting too because sometimes I'll think, well, maybe I'll do this because this is a great time of year to have it. But it seems like that's always the case. It's always a great time of year to have things that are just a little easier. And sometimes around the holidays, when you are doing these bigger meals, it can be great to have meals that just take less preparation or maybe are already ready to go without having to buy something that's store made. All right, so that's done. I'm just going to get ahead on the soup for tomorrow. By chopping some of the veggies. I've got onion, celery, and carrots. Is it there's a term for that. I don't know. I know what it is when I hear it, but anyway, it's always a great soup starter. Another thing I would like to know about, if you have an opinion on the matter, is do you watch a lot of collaborations with YouTube channels? Do you like that kind of thing? I know sometimes like I've done a pantry challenge where I think there's a lot of people that kind of can join in. There's certain channels that kind of like start something, and then other people will just kind of hashtag and piggyback on. Sometimes you'll get like, oh, there's this crafting channel that me and one of my kids love to watch, and she does these collaborations with other crafting channels, and sometimes that can be a little different the way that they do that. Um, but if you like collaborations, like what kind of things do you like when they do? And do you find that it actually um, expands the people who you like to watch? I know with this crafting gal, there's something about her that we just really like the way she talks and kind of like the flow of her videos. So it's hard to like catch on to a new one. But I know as far as being the person who's making videos, it's really it's really a cool thing to be able to work with other people who are doing them. Even if it's just a hashtag, and then you're kind of joining in. Or early on when I first started making videos, which is 2.5 years ago, there was this what I like to can, what I don't like to can. And I know all the YouTubers who were doing this or the different channels who had videos on that, they didn't know each other. But, it was just sort of like almost like a trend instead of a collaboration kind of a thing. And do you like live collaborations as opposed to non-live? Okay, every bit counts. Yes, Three Rivers Homestead. That's how I first found out about the pantry challenge one, was through, I think that's kind of where that thing started. I watched some of her stuff too, and yeah, that the every bit counts. She does that too. So Make and I have become good friends, and it's really fun. She is great. Yep, Three Rivers Homestead. Yeah. Um, I have not reached out to Three Rivers Homestead or done any kind of collaboration with her, but Make and I, we chat. Cool. And we tried to do a collaboration. She might be here right now. I know she was here a second ago, but we tried to do one, and the editing was a little funky, so we didn't do it. But we actually were talking about doing one of these types of ones that we were talking about today, actually. So you're looking for a food prep guide. And what do you mean by food prep? Just for like weekly? Just a how to? Where's your starting point for food prep? I guess when I think of food prep, I think that there can be meal prep and food prep maybe mean different things, but maybe to some people it means the same thing. Oh, it's a channel. Okay. Food prep guide is the channel. Interesting. Okay. I wonder if I've come across them. It's funny because I think that YouTube tends to populate things to me with the kind of things that I'm talking about. So, all things food preservation. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's such a cool thing too. And sometimes I get stuck in a rut with doing the same type of preservation. But like all this dehydrating that I've been doing has just blown open my things that I'm looking at. And I did my salsa. That was a super fun one. I still haven't used these carrots. Hey, I could throw these in this soup tomorrow. I might do that and see how they rehydrate. There's definitely going to be carrots in there. I had from our CSA a bunch of leftover peppers, hot peppers and bell peppers and just various peppers. And there was a lot of them, and it just boiled down to this. And this is just diced. But I was thinking, which is probably no big surprise, to powder this because that smell or that taste of bell pepper is so good. I wish I could share that smell with you. It's just so rich, and I don't know, when I smell like a fresh bell pepper, I can like smell the moisture too, but the pure smell without that is so concentrated. Yeah, sometimes in a rut. And so one of the reasons why and I've mentioned this probably too, but I've been trying to keep my videos a little shorter. That's another thing. I don't know if you like the shorter videos. They're a little easier to edit and get out, which sometimes can be a challenge to actually getting stuff out. Is like, I like sharing and I like showing all this stuff, but I don't want people to get bored. And so I think for a lot of people's attention spans, they should be shorter. But one of the reasons with dehydrating, I've been getting so excited, is this flavor. And I talked about it with my salsa, but things like the peppers, like what I can do with that in terms of making spice blends and things. And so I've been working on that. I think about bouillons and things like that are just flavor concentrations, and you know all that stuff is made out of dehydrate. A lot of it anyway is made out of dehydrated food because those flavors are so concentrated, and then they can pack it in small, and it is what it is. One of the videos that I saw recently from a channel that I think YouTube thought I would like is this gal doing meals in jars, but then she also did these like rice jars where she just filled with white rice and then seasoned. I don't remember where I was going with that, but I saw, and I was thinking, well, that's kind of a good idea. But then I always look at the comments because I like hearing what people say and how people react and things like that. And one of the things that one of the people said, which immediately I was like, yeah, no, was that they like to rinse the rice before they cook with it. And I do that too. And so if you've already put it in the jar with these things, you can't do that. Ooh, apple butter in pancakes. That sounds really good. That's an impressive list of apple products for sure. So when you dehydrate your apple slices, does it turn out like a leathery kind of, like chewy like that, or do they snap? Yes, homemade rice-a-roni. So then do you not rinse the rice? You just put it in the jars and it just turns out fine? Because I mean, I like the concept, but I was thinking that wouldn't work because of that. But think about like if I were to pull out a container of bouillon, which I mean, let's see, what do I have? I only have this thing, and it is, yeah, this isn't really what I'm looking for. This is like a chicken base. It's just chicken, maltodextrin, which is a sweetener, salt, chicken stock, sugar, starch, yeast, flavoring, turmeric. So there's really not even that much in here. But if I were to look at like a vegetable bouillon powder or something like that, which I'm probably going to be doing now as soon as we're done here, I would probably be able to find that it's made out of dehydrated onion, celery, probably bell pepper, probably tomato, maybe carrot, maybe mushroom, depending on the brand. These are things that I know are easy to access, low cost, relatively low cost, and make really good flavorings that are pretty universal. So by dehydrating all these things and making these sort of rich seasoning powders, I wonder how, I mean, I guess a person would really have to experiment with amounts to be able to make hard recipes. But if not a hard recipe, just to have them in the arsenal for using. Sorry, my brain is now thinking while I'm talking about something else. But I have celery powder still from some celery that I dehydrated, and that stuff is amazing. It's such an amazing punch of flavor. So you like the slices to snap. I do too. But when I buy apple, like dehydrated apples in our bulk section at the co-op, they're always soft. And maybe that's something in the way that they are like pre-treated that keeps them kind of soft or something like that. I don't know. Yes, of course. Yeah, you could leave it. Is that what you do? Because that's a great idea. Because then you can still rinse it, but it's all already prepared. Yeah, and I've seen people put in like apple sauce kind of cups in the top of jars for like dressings, and I mean, a person could kind of do that. Although I don't know how airtight that would be, and that might, as long as you used them quickly, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. But anyway, well, we'll probably wrap up, but I'm just gonna finish chopping the celery. I'll probably leave those carrots actually, because I'm gonna maybe use the dehydrated carrots for the first time and see how they go. Although I kind of like bigger carrots in that soup, so we'll see. Okay, so you just cut them smaller to be snappier. I was gonna maybe consider trying to capture some video of some freeze drying, because I was somewhere where there is a freeze dryer, and I was able to do a bunch of freeze dried food, but there was a lot going on, so I didn't get to it. But I don't have a freeze dryer. He has done a lot of freeze drying of various foods, from like cooked ground beef and onions to cheese, which tastes like the most amazing like Cheez-It, but without anything. It's just cheese. It's like the texture and the flavor is so good. It's not like a lot of other freeze dried food that has that marshmallowy kind of texture to it. Okay, lemon juice to keep them crispier. I bet that would help a little bit with maybe the freshness too. I don't know. But the freeze dryer, and I probably showed this. This is some freeze dried cranberry powder. I don't have any dehydrated. We just finished a jar, but my dehydrated cranberry powder is way darker than this. Here's some peppers. This was an experiment because I wanted to see how they would go like dipped in hummus. And I know we can use fresh ones, but sometimes these are just a little bit easier, and they're great. My kids love these with hummus. And then apples. These do get a little brown. I think that's just part of the oxidizing that happens. But tart apples, freeze dried, are really good. And I think that we tend to like sweeter apples when eating fresh. But anyway, that was just kind of a side tangent. But okay, so let's wrap up here. So I'm just going to chop this. I'm probably going to end up doing these and not my dehydrated, just because I like bigger chunks in this soup. But other than that, if you're watching this on a replay, well, first of all, I appreciate everybody being here who's here right now. It's been fun to interact and to get some like good connections, and we know some location connections, which is kind of fun. And yeah, we'll keep working on the things that we're working on. This is a one-person show here, so I see all my comments, and if there's any feedback that you have, just let them, just drop them in there. Yes, no, I don't apologize for typing so much. It's been fun to interact, so it's not just me, rambling. But you're welcome, Erica. Thanks for being here. That's a great idea, and I've thought about doing that too. I've thought about pre-cooking rice and dehydrating it. Thanks, Kula. Is it Kula? Kaula. Oh, thank you. It can be hard sometimes, so that kind of, just hearing that makes me feel good. I appreciate you being here. But I thought about dehydrating and then making that because I've heard that that can be like you're basically making like a minute rice or something like that. So that would be great because then you don't need to rinse it. Yeah, I like that idea. So anything that you want to throw in, you can always tell me what you're cooking for dinner because I love hearing that. And sort of like meal planning and things like that is a passion of mine. Any projects that you want to share that you're working on, I love to hear that kind of stuff. Oh, I'm glad I made it more fun. Good luck on your canning projects. And yeah, just let me know about anything that you would like to do or like to see or like to do together. Because it, like I said, if there's interest, we can do some canning together. All right, I'm gonna sign off here, and we'll talk to you guys soon.